Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. That's Martin Luther King Jr. Great quote of one of his many great quotes. Today, lots of things going through my mind. Spent some time writing and getting some thoughts out to go along with that Dr. King quote is part of my thought today, and it's this: it is only in your darkest times that you become capable of seeing your true self. So I'm going to talk about facades. Socially acceptable movie nowadays for sure, but a scene in Blazing Saddles is basically they're in the middle of the Wild West. They are trying to protect their city from this huge group of, some of the worst criminals around coming to attack them because they want the railroad to go through their land. And so, as every 1970s slapstick comedy goes, they basically build an entire replica city overnight that looks exactly like their city. And so they can trap and get rid of this group coming to take them out. And so why I bring that up is those facades. It shows in the movie, everybody that has just gotten done building this elaborate scheme overnight. They're standing in the street looking around, and it looks exactly like their town, every down to the littlest detail. But then a few minutes later, the camera pans out, and you quickly see that these are just thin, fake walls that are held up by other thin pieces of wood. They're just facades. It's not real. And so that comes into play with something else that has really been on my mind here lately, and that is what is the fire service missing right now? What are we missing? What is going on that is just keeping us from becoming who and what we should be? And to be honest, you know, this is going to sound really opposite of everything anybody else ever talks about. But what the fire service is, air quotes, embodied and who we are is courage and bravery. But today, I'm going to rock that boat, and I'm going to say that courage and that bravery that we've been, you know, standing on, and the bravado that it has provided us, and the everything that we love to share and to be spoken of and referred to and acknowledged. Is it real, or is it just a fake, empty, hollow facade that we're standing behind? What are our true selves? We can make these facades, and they can look great from a distance, and they can look great from ground level. But sometimes it doesn't take much investigation to really just quickly pick apart the facades, see how flimsy they are, see how fake they are, see how far from the truth things really are. So today, as I, you know, laid that question out just a few moments ago, what is the fire service missing? I'm going to say that, in my opinion, what the fire service is lacking today is courage. And no, that's not a popular opinion. And I guess I want to maybe clarify a little bit before I go any further about what I'm speaking of. I'm not speaking of the lack of courage to enter burning buildings, fight fire, drag people out that are trapped, put ourselves in danger for others, save lives and property. I'm not speaking to that at all. I'm not speaking to the amount of risk that we take on every day that we choose to ride the rigs in the service that we have been sworn to. That's not what I'm speaking of. And honestly, just speaking personally, because that's the only person I can speak for, those times aren't really times that I consider myself having courage. And by that, I mean, those are the things that we're here for. Those are the things that we live for. I mean, that's the highlight of, the day, the week, the tour, the month, the career sometimes, fighting fire, searching for victims, making a difference when seconds count and when lives are on the line. Those are the things that we are here for. The kind of people that the fire service is drawing in are people that these things come easy. It doesn't require me to sit at the front door and really work my courage up to go in. I do it because I love it. And so, yeah, that might be skewed and might be not right, but I am a firefighter. That is what I do. However, I'm bold enough to say that, I'm courageous enough to go into all these different things, but I feel like I also have to show the other side of that coin. The real courage isn't those emergency scenes. It's not how we respond and how we act and our choices on those emergency scenes when lives are on the line and seconds count. That's not real courage, at least for me. Again, I will just speak for me. The ultimate test of courage for me are in much different scenarios. For me, it's the times when I have a choice to either stand up for something that I know is right, even though I might be standing alone against the crowd. But that's the choice I have to make. Am I courageous enough to stand up for something that I know is right, even though I know I may be doing it alone? It's the times when there's personnel issues that have to be dealt with. Am I going to be courageous enough to deal with them head on, to handle them at my level, to face the problems, to face the difficult conversations and make it right there? Or am I going to ignore the problem altogether so I don't have to deal with it? Or am I going to pass the problem up the chain so somebody else is the bad guy? That's that's a time that my courage is tested. The difficult conversations, the difficult choices, the difficult things in life, that's when I'm most tested. And I promise you, I have failed so many times to show courage in those areas. And it's interesting to me that you can have such a, you know, such very ends of the spectrum. You're doing a job that so many people would never think to do or would never be able to do because they're not able to push themselves to be that courageous, if you want to call it that. But at the same time, you're too scared, you're too weak, you're not strong enough to have difficult conversations or to make difficult decisions because you don't want to be, you know, disliked by others, or you don't want to be the person that makes a decision that negatively affects somebody you care about. Those are the times that that true courage has put to the test. So as I'm talking about this, and I've already mentioned a few, just made a list here, and this is obviously not every area that you could come up with. I'm sure this list is mainly affected by my personal experience and the experiences that others have shared with me. I'm sure you could probably add to this list, but here's a list of some examples that I'm talking about when we're talking about lacking courage. So the courage to make decisions even though you know it will negatively affect people that you care about. That's a big one. I believe I've talked about this in the past. As leaders, if you're if you're leading more than one person, chances are a decision is not going to be a great decision for everybody. And the more you lead, the more that chance goes down and down and down. We have to make decisions that are going to negatively affect people that we care about. That's part of the job. Next one is the courage to be yourself, even though there will be somebody who you do not like. Sorry, let me start that over. The courage to be yourself, even though there will be some who do not like the person that you are. Can't tell you how many times I see this. And, I've got lots of kids for those who know me or who have, heard me talk. And this is obviously something you see all the time with kids. Just that fear of being disliked, the fear of not fitting in, the changing of oneself to be more like the crowd and to be accepted. But I promise you, it doesn't stop there. I see it all the time. I fight it all the time myself. That little voice inside that tells you people will like you if you do this, or you'll get along better if you're this way, or if you go along with the flow, then you'll be more accepted. There's so many different ways that this creeps into our life, but we have to be courageous enough to be ourselves. Next one is speaking up for what is right, even if you know you will be misunderstood. This is something I feel so very strongly about. Being somebody who truly feels like I've been given a message and a platform to share that message and the story that I have. Firsthand, I know that people are going to misunderstand it. People are going to take things wrong. People are going to take your words and use them against you, even. So it takes a lot of courage to speak up. It takes a lot of courage to speak up in a small group. It takes an amazing amount of courage to speak out in a public setting, to really put yourself out there, because you will be misunderstood. That's just part of it. So the next one, accepting that you will be disliked despite attempts to do the best for the most. And this kind of goes back to that first one. As leaders, we we make choices that are going to affect everybody. Some it will affect good, some it will affect bad. The best we can do is make the right choice for the most amount of people. But that's the thing is we have to do it. We have to have the courage to make the choice. We can't not make a choice or not decide on something because we don't want to be the bad guy. We have to have the courage to be the bad guy and to be disliked. Next one, the courage to deal with issues head on that should be handled at your level instead of ignoring them or passing them up the chain so that you don't have to be the bad guy. This is one that I talked about a few minutes ago for myself that is something that I've really struggled with. That accountability. I don't I don't honestly feel like I've ever struggled with holding myself accountable. I mean, not saying that I don't mess up or that I don't mess up the same way twice or whatever, but I'm always harder on myself than others are on me. That's not a problem. My problem is holding people accountable, having the courage to have the awkward, the difficult conversations. That's been a struggle for me, and that will continue to be a struggle for me. But I know that that is an area that I have to continue to pour myself into so that I can gain courage and be better there. Next one, the courage to make mistakes and to grow from them. Man, this is something I see so often, and I've talked about it throughout the years. There's so many people out there. There's so many of us that we just hide. We avoid training. We avoid new things because we're scared to fail. We're scared to show weakness. We're scared to say, "Hey, you know something I don't know." We're scared to let go of our maybe our rank or our seniority, our respect, our street cred, whatever it is. We don't have the courage to let that stuff go so that we can learn and grow and become better. And that's exactly what happens when that doesn't when we aren't capable of that. If we aren't capable of humbling ourselves and making mistakes and putting ourselves out there again, we aren't going to grow. We're never going to get better. So again, a big area that I feel like it is the fire service is lacking in courage. Next one, the courage to stand for what is right, even if you must stand alone. And this is another one I brought up earlier. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's so easy to go with the crowd and just kind of ignore things sometimes or make compromises sometimes. It takes courage to stand for what is right, especially if you know you are going to be standing alone. But that is an area that that we cannot make a compromise in. We cannot compromise the right decision or choice or value just because it's easier. We have to have the courage. The courage to challenge the status quo and the minimum standard mindset, even though doing so will place a target on your back. Another one that I see and hear about all the time. Those of us that, if you're listening to this podcast, you are probably somebody who has a target on your back because the people that are okay with minimum standards and are okay with just being a yes man and a company man and whatever, however you want to put it, they aren't listening to podcasts like this. They aren't making themselves better. They're not challenging anything. They're not they're not standing for anything. They're just hiding. And that's that's not what we're okay with. We're not okay with accepting that. And if that's who you are, if you're compelled to challenge that status quo, that this is how we've always done it, that minimum standards are the only thing that matters mindset, then you will have a target on your back. And that's okay. Because again, these are the right things to do. These are fights worth fighting. And last one I have is the courage to support those you lead, even when it means that you must stand up to your own boss. Again, it's pretty self explanatory. But how many of you out there have experienced this? How many of you out there can say, yes, I have seen this, I have felt this. It it is it's a hard place to find yourself. And this is something that speaks to a brand new term that I just learned yesterday called perceived organizational support, POS, which I am sure I will be speaking more of in the future. But when you don't have that support from above, when you aren't supported and cared for by your organization, you're not going to succeed. You're not going to want to succeed. Why would you? So that's that area that makes it so difficult for some personalities. You find yourself in that middle management role where you have people that you lead. You obviously have people above you that you have to answer to, but when they're when the conflicts arise, when things happen that places you in the middle and you have to pick a side, and I'm not talking about right or wrong here. I'm talking about support. I'm talking about care. Are you supporting your people when they need support? Or are you just rolling over to your boss because, well, everybody's got a boss. That's my boss and that's what they say. And so that's what we got to do. That sucks. It truly sucks to be in a position that you do not feel supported. And so, obviously that's a pretty good list. I would imagine that at least one thing in that list kind of hits you and makes you think, man, that is an area that I have difficulty with. I would also imagine that there's probably several things on that list that you heard and say, right on. I have been in that place. I have had people treat me that way who were not courageous enough to do the right thing, and I took the brunt of whatever because of that. And again, it's a hard place to be. And unfortunately, we are stuck there because we can't change others. We have no control over their decisions or how they lead or anything, because all we control is ourself, right? Like I have said many times, I have struggled with a lot of these myself. I'm not trying to portray anyone that has struggled in these areas as a bad leader or somebody who is not doing their job. These areas are hard. These areas are difficult to really address. A lot of times, the areas that we struggle with the most directly conflict with the personalities that we have. If you're a laid back person that doesn't really enjoy conflict, then there's going to be a lot of things on that list that you struggle with. That's why I struggle with a lot of things on that list. But step one is we got to really understand that like I said, we can only affect ourselves. We can only change ourselves. And in doing that, we have to know ourselves. You know, this whole process, it's easy to see where things are lacking, but when it comes to fixing them, it's not easy. If we are to truly fix some of these things, we are going to be placed in a situation to where we are faced with pain, embarrassment, fear, a lot of discomfort. We're going to have to truly strip ourselves of everything that we have hidden behind. Something I said in the intro is I found that it is only in my darkest time that I have become capable of seeing my true self. And of course, anybody that listened to the last episode of, I believe it was called Out of the Darkness, you got a good glimpse of more into that, a little deeper dive into that. And you know, as painful as those situations were, as helpless as I felt, and as much as I don't want to be there again, I'm so thankful for those times because those times have led to a better me, a more refined version of myself, a more honest version of myself that was able to truly look at who I was and really see the areas that I need help in. And so that's kind of, that's the meat of it. And again, I want to always just really hammer on the fact that we can't control anybody else. We can't change anybody else. We can't allow anybody else to take away from us or to rob moments of our lives. We have to focus on us. We have to control what can be controlled, and that is us. So, what areas are you struggling with? Did any of this list really hit you and make you think that, man, that's me? That's where I've got to step up because that's where we need to focus. Like I said, I'm sure we can all just point out time after time after time and boss after boss after boss that has embodied these things for us, towards us. And and all the times we've been wronged and all the times that we've been unsupported. I promise you, I get it. The past month and a half I've had, I will tell you that it is so hard not to go there. It's so hard not to live there. It is so hard to pull myself away from that and bring the focus back to the real problem. The real problem is always me. It's always me. I can't worry about the them. I have to worry about me. Like I talked about, the process of these changes, it's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy. You will be tested and you will be pushed to your limit. But even though it's a difficult path, the process is really simple. If we want to start acting in a more courageous way, then all it takes is just making more courageous decisions. Being more courageous when the opportunities arise. When difficult decisions need to be made, choose what is best for the most people and make the decision. Do it. Don't pass it along. Don't ignore it. Don't set it in the back and let it just fester and get worse and worse and worse. Deal with it. Make the decision. When someone you lead makes a mistake that requires them to be held accountable, deal with the situation head on. And if discipline is required, then choose what is right according to the situation. Do it yourself. Don't pass it on. Don't ignore it. Be courageous and deal with the problem. If you feel compelled to challenge the status quo, then have the courage to face the issues that will arise because of the target that you will become. I wish it wasn't that way. I don't understand why it's that way, but it is. We have to accept that. If we want to do what is right, if we want to walk the path that has been laid out in front of us, we are going to be a target because there are people out there that do not want to hear what we have to say. Excuse me. Even worse, there are people out there that will do everything they can to silence you because they don't want others to hear what you have to say. The status quo is a comfortable place. That minimum standard, it's easy to meet. It's easy to manage for those that don't have a lot of leadership skills. It's a great thing to lay out there. But it is not best for the citizens. It is not best for the firefighters and the members of the fire service. It's not best for our families, and it's not best for us. So if that's how you feel, I'm with you. I've been beat down and beat down and beat down because of this, because of the fight, because of standing for things that I know is right, even if it goes against the grain. And I've just come to terms with the target that it has placed upon me. It doesn't make it any easier to make it through and deal with those times. But I can't help but keep thinking that if those people are targeting me, then I am doing something good. And I have to keep going. This is how we become at peace with ourselves. And this is how we bring real courage back to the fire service. Thank you for your time very much. I very much appreciate everything that you all are doing out there. You're not alone. You're not struggling alone. You're not fighting alone. You're not falling apart alone. You're not broken alone. We are together, and we will make a difference. One person at a time. Appreciate your attention and your time. Until next time, we will not lower our standards just because others refuse to raise theirs. See you later.